Dr. Sushmita, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this excellently planned instruction course. And thank you for the rest of the faculty for their brilliant presentations. So just to highlight the utility of this investigation, let me take you through a case first, and let's see. So this was a case of a 60-year-old male who presented to us after cataract surgery with IOL implantation and was very unhappy with his vision post-operatively and was almost blaming his primary operating surgeon. And he wanted to know if his IOL was in place, if everything had gone wrong, and was just looking for reasons to blame the primary surgeon. So basically, after looking at the entire examination of his eye and ascertaining that the IOL was in place, and when we looked at the other eye of the patient and saw kind of a beaten metal appearance in the endothelium, we performed a specular microscopy of his endothelium of the other eye and found these. So this is very typical of Fuchs endothelial dystrophy, which is a bilateral hereditary condition. And so we conveyed this to him and regarding the inherent weakness of his both corneas. And then he underwent an endothelial keratoplasty and is now more accepting of the fact that his eyes were weak and that it was not the surgeon's weakness or something that he could blame anybody else for. So this is basically why it is important to understand what investigations are to be done when. So basically, specular microscopy is a non-invasive kind of an investigation for studying your hexagonal energy efficient monolayer, which is on the endothelium. And this basically is, it does not show regeneration, and it is, as we know, it is arrested in the G1 phase of the cell cycle. And we know that at birth, we are mostly approximately born with around 5 lakh cells in each eye. And as we age, there is a certain amount of attrition. 100 to 500 cells per year are lost, and which is this is seen at the rate of 0.6 cells per percent cells every year. So it's not just the number of cells which is important, it is also the size and shape of the cells which is important. So if we look at something like here, when each of the cell dies off or attritions, so the cells alongside it or the peripheral cells glide over and take over the area which is uncovered, and that leads to a change in their sizes. So that is basically the change in size, which is normal or physiological and could be termed as polymegathism. Coming over to the change in shape, because of some physiological stresses or with aging, there is also a change in shape, which is usually a hexagonal shape, which is the best energy efficient shape for the hexagonal monolayer. So this also leads to certain things, could also be possible in contact lens wearers, and this is basically known as pleomorphism. So we could even have cases with a normal endothelial cell density being shown, but there might be polymegathism and pleomorphism. So it's important to study all the indices properly. So these are a few examples of all the commercially available specular microscopes. This is a typical printout which is received by each one of us. It has a zone which gives the demographic profile and the eye which is being measured. It gives a grayscale picture of the eye. It also shows the area from which the picture has been taken. And then it shows the qualitative analysis here, in which the picture of the actual endothelium is seen. You can actually measure the cell boundaries, or the cell. You can look at the quality of the cells. You can look at the conformation of cells and their boundaries. And depending upon whether the image quality is good or not, we can go ahead and further analyze this. So this then brings us to the quantitative analysis, wherein the first thing is the number of cells which have been counted, the N. Here it is basically for analysis, we need a good representation sample, and so this should be at least more than 50, and this will give us the further analysis. Then comes the cell density, or the endothelial cell density, which we are interested in cells per millimeter square. And this basically degenerates with age, as we know. And then there is a critical minimum density of 300 to 500, which is needed for the normal functioning of the endothelium. And when in preoperative states, if this is less than 1000 millimeter cells per millimeter square, there is a risk of bullous keratopathy. This brings us to the average cell size, which increases with age and leads can be a marker of polymegathism. Then comes the standard deviation of the mean cell area, which is again measured in micron square. Then there is the coefficient of variation of the cell's size, and that is the index again of polymegathism. In usual individuals, it's somewhere between 0.22 to 0.31. If it's more than that, it shows endothelial stress. Then there is the minimum and maximum sizes of the cells that have been counted. Next comes the measure of the central corneal thickness, which is actually a kind of a rough estimate, and it is lesser than the ultrasound pachymetry, but it is more repeatable than it. Then these are the graphical representations of the areas of the cells, which give a type of idea of the polymegathism, and then the hexagonality of the cells, which is measured and gives us the idea of pleomorphism. Usually more than 60% of the cells, 50 to 60% of the cells are hexagonal, and something lesser than that will be basically because of some stress. Also, the inter-eye difference is important. So if we have images of both the eyes, some endothelial cell count difference of more than 280 cells is considered significant. So where all can we use the specular microscopy? Basically, it is used for identifying corneal endothelial changes prior to surgeries, for example, in cataract surgery or others. We could also find out the cause of corneal decompensation in pseudophakic bullous or aphakic bullous keratopathies. For diagnosing endothelial dystrophies like Fuchs or posterior polymorphous dystrophies, before implanting your phakic IOLs or secondary IOLs, for evaluating donor corneas based on the specular microscopy of the eye banks, for corneal transplantations and evaluating tissues, and in contact lens practice, and assessing safety and efficacy of anterior and even posterior segment procedures, devices, and pharmaceutical interventions. So basically, also before any research is undertaken. So let's start with Fuchs endothelial dystrophy. We know guttae. Guttae are basically the abnormal excrescences over the Descemet's membrane, and they could be either circular or globular, or could be multi-lobed, which are seen. And this is a typical case where there is a mild to moderate endothelial dystrophy, and this is one of the severe cases. And we have certain scores for grading the clinical severity, wherein there is confluent or non-confluent guttae. And based on that, we also have cataract surgery endothelial risk matrices, which have been designed. And they also depend upon the specular counts and basically these coefficient variation and hexagonality. So based on all these, we can actually stratify the risks before cataract surgery. We can find out which type of cataract surgery would be more suitable, a regular phaco or a femtosecond assisted or an SICS or an ECC, or whether it should be combined with an EK procedure or not, maybe a DSEC or a DMEC. In general, after DMEC, we definitely achieve a good endothelial count postoperatively. So a rough guide would be if your central corneal thickness is more than 640 microns, or if the endothelial cell density is less than 1000 cells per millimeter square, and the patient gives history of morning haze or glare and halos, then it's preferable to perform the cataract surgery along with the endothelial keratoplasty. So specular has also been used in recent studies where for Fuchs, we have done the Descemet stripping only procedure without the transplantation of a separate membrane. And this is basically done to assess the peripheral endothelial count, wherein the peripheral cells slide over and they help in repopulating the central stripped area of the endothelium. And this has basically been demonstrated with the use of Rho kinase inhibitors like ripasudil also. In cases of congenital hereditary endothelial dystrophy, the stromal haze does not allow us to get a good specular image mostly. So these cases do not benefit much with speculars. Posterior polymorphous dystrophy again is a good indication where we can see vesicles like these with surrounding endothelium which is distorted. Iritis is again a case where you find pseudogate, where you can have, after treatment, this is reversible and the endothelium actually shows a normal phenotype. Iridocorneal endothelial syndrome, or the ICE variety, the ICE cells appear as negative images where with light cell junction and dark cell bodies, the inverse, basically it's a light dark inversion, and partial corneal involvement may show a clear demarcation between the abnormal and the normal cells. Right. So the other eye, in cases of eye syndrome, if we do the specular microscopy, we'll see a drastic contrast between the two. Contact lens induced endotheliopathy again is seen in patients who use a lower oxygen diffusion coefficient lenses, and this can be, over a period of time, can be reversible if we discontinue such use. So basically, in our practice, we use it for suspected gate with symptoms. We use it for knowing the cause of any of bullous keratopathy. We need to find out the cause of graft edema. We do this. After all, sutures are removed, and before planning a cataract surgery or planning a contact lens fitting, we use specular microscopy for following up cases of DSEC or DMEC to know the endothelial health and the rate of attrition of the endothelial cells. We find the specular very helpful, and for monitoring cases of corneal collagen cross-linking in thin corneas also, and in unexplained corneal edemas. This is basically how it helps. So just an example of a post-PK case where the bi-exponential loss is seen, and this is beautifully demonstrated in specular. The other use is for donor tissue specular microscopy. These are the commercially available eye-bank specular microscopes. These are vertical ones, and the entire evaluation depends upon a good image quality, which is achieved. And a rough guide would be a minimum donor endothelial cell count established for most eye banks, which is 2000 cells per millimeter square. And for endothelial keratoplasty, this is a little higher, up to 2200 to 2500 cells for a better outcome. So again, to grade the tissue for different kinds of keratoplasties, we use the specular microscope, and the worst ones are then taken up for a DALK or a therapeutic or a keratoprosthesis use. We can also use to assess the efficiency of the pre-cut tissues by doing the pre and post-cut endothelial cell density, and to find out any abnormal structures in the harvested corneas. So there are various limitations. Yes, there are. There is inaccessibility of the peripheral corneal endothelium for sampling, difficulties in obtaining truly random samples because only the center is actually the very specific focal area is being sampled, and there could be a sample bias. There could be a poor image quality in significant corneal edema. There is reproducibility of measurements, but can be improved further. The relationship between endothelial function in maintaining corneal clarity and cell density and shape is yet to be established. It cannot be used for screening in the community for large-scale purposes, and pediatric eyes examined under anesthesia and supine position. So basically, we would like to have any specular microscope which would help us with that. Future prospects, there are smartphone-based endothelial imaging devices which are being now developed, and in vivo imaging from different areas is being tried, especially for kids in supine position under GA. So basically, it is a useful preoperative tool before planning intraocular surgeries. It is helpful to assess the size, shape, and population of the endothelial cells for both eyes. And these are the parameters which can help us. And it's always better to check the donor tissue and match the specular details just before you plan your keratoplasties.